Hi everyone, I'm Jugravi Singh, and this is Race to 2030. Today's episode is about Goal 12, which is responsible consumption and production. In a way, the pandemic does offer an opportunity for countries to develop recovery plans that can create a more sustainable future. This should be a moment when all 193 countries of the United Nations review their policies to see whether they align with the 2030 agenda or not. Time is ticking, and we really have got to encourage everyone to take part to bring a sustainable future for our beloved planet. To ensure sustainable consumption of products, I'm going to be speaking to the head of communications of the local Globe organization, Jie Min Kuan. She is an active member of the organization who constantly posts ways we can help our planet recover from the threats of the climate crisis on the organization's Instagram page, the local Globe org. She also adds new articles and stories on the organization's website, thelocalglobeorg.org. I first met Jimin earlier in June for the sustainability webinar that her organization had hosted. I found her to be as a smart, talented, and optimistic person. I'm glad she accepted to take part in this podcast series. How do you think we should sustainably consume our food?
Okay, firstly, the most crucial would be to reduce food waste. Food waste is an unsustainable way of consumption as the waste often gets incinerated, which contributes to pollution, or it gets converted into fertilizer, which also requires a large amount of natural gas and is an extremely energy-intensive process. So other implications would also include attracting pests and bugs that may carry harmful diseases. And secondly, I think we should eat within our means. So in other words, try not to overeat. Because overeating will lead to a lot of food waste and is bad for human health too. And thirdly, I think we can eat more vegetables, adopt a more vegetarian-like diet, and try to reduce our intake of meat. This because meat production is actually more energy intensive than vegetables, and there are a lot of health benefits of consuming greens too. But that being said, it does not mean that we should cut meat entirely from our diet. It does have benefits and it provides us with a lot of protein. But just try to transition to eating more vegetables. Okay, so that's all for the first question.
One of the targets of this goal is to have responsible management of chemicals and waste. Do you think by 2030 we can have environmentally sound management of chemicals and all waste?
Right now, I feel that countries are more focused on reducing the carbon footprint and building infrastructure for renewable energy than on chemical waste management. So my answer would be no. In order to do that, in order to have sound management of chemicals, there has to be stringent policies and effective enforcement. So unless governments are proactive in tightening their oversight towards unscrupulous businesses who engage in unethical waste practices, it would then not be possible for this issue to be mitigated. So it is more of a systematic issue than it is a social issue.
How should we encourage companies to become sustainable in their practices and reporting?
In a capitalist world, companies run on profits. So unless there are monetary rewards for upkeeping sustainable practices, it is hard to encourage them to engage in that. Perhaps as the green movement evolve and become more prevalent, they would appeal to the masses. The businesses would appeal to the masses by marketing their green practices, but this has already been done before, and unfortunately, many businesses who did that were eventually revealed to be unethical, just like Nike and H&M.
How can we promote sustainable tourism and its importance to people who have never tried it or are against it?
Okay, the Travel Foundation UK, it is a journalism site in the UK. It has stated that the aim of sustainable tourism is to increase the benefits and to reduce the negative impacts caused by tourism for destinations. This can be achieved by protecting natural environments, wildlife, natural resources when developing and managing tourism activities. And I completely agree with this. I think the most effective way to persuade tourists to engage in such a practice would be through education and the use of visual cues. So when people see the impact of unsustainable tourism that has brought to many communities, they will be more inclined to avoid such behavior. And there should also be stricter fines and consequences put in place if such behavior is spotted overseas, such as damaging places of interest or spitting at these places. A portion of the profits from the tourism industry can be invested in manpower to reinforce such measures too.
What policies should government sign into law for people to become more sustainable and responsibly consume products?
I think this should start with a systematic assessment of the people in government. Firstly, governments themselves have to have the willpower to see these initiatives into fruition. That is the only way to get things done effectively. And secondly, I think the government officials have to be uncorrupted because many times green initiatives fail because governments go unchecked or they simply do not have the willpower to see this project to its end. So these projects are abandoned halfway or are lax in their implementation. So some suggestion would be number one, of course, through education to encourage citizens to carry their own reusable shopping and grocery bags, use straws, eat within their limits, take public transport, use refillable water bottles instead of buying canned drinks, etc. And number two, it would be pricing. Unsustainable materials are only obtainable to allow unsustainable materials to be only obtainable at an inflated rate to deter the use of its final products. And another alternative would be to eliminate plastic gradually in each country, starting with the banning of plastic cups and straws and slowly moving on to packaging, although this requires a massive international effort. And thirdly, through research and development policies. So according to the UN, 13.8% of food is lost in the supply chain. So we can invest into research to improve the transportation and the storage of such foods. And another pertinent issue is also about food waste. So policies can be made uh, to make businesses responsible uh, for ethical waste management, or they will face dire penalties. And government should also work with companies to implement a compulsory time frame between the purchase of consecutive electronic products and increase the price of current electronic devices. But a side note would be that businesses will be unwilling to cooperate since this potentially hurts their profits or it will hurt their profits. So research has to be conducted to find out how to make parts in electronic devices biodegradable after a considerable period of time. And lastly, I think policies can be enacted to make reusable products more inexpensive and prevalent in common areas like supermarkets, cafes, etc.
Yep, I agree with all your points that you just stated. So that's all the questions I have for you today. Thank you for
Okay.
interview for me, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Well, that's it for my 12th episode. I'll be back for episode 13, which is climate action. Once again, I strongly encourage you all to take part in the local Globe organization. It's an incredible way to start taking steps to solve any environmental issues our world poses. Let's all thank Jie Min and Helena for their amazing work in the organization and hope they can continue their good work. As always, if you have any questions or ideas, please type them down in the comment section down below. Thank you and see you all soon.